What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. Front of a house. It's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is we're seeing more properties like this being built. Let's do some stuff. Talk to you later. Bye. I'm joined today with Bastian. Is it Kneuse is how you pronounce your last name?
It's Kneuse.
Kneuse. Okay, there, Kneuse. Okay, there you go. Good stuff. All right, so for those of you who haven't seen one of these chance encounters before, what I do is I go through the 5 different motivations that commercial investors have for their next acquisition, and I say, hey, which one is you? And then I use my Dan Does Deal die with the 6 different roles in a commercial deal, and I say, which one is your core competency or the way that you're most likely to contribute to the next deal. But one thing that's very important if you're going to do well in any industry, and commercial real estate is no different, is you have to be able to effectively introduce yourself. So Bastian, can you please introduce yourself for the audience?
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Dan. So my name is Bastian Kneuse. I'm based out of San Francisco. I started investing in real estate several years ago. I started the traditional route with single families, smaller multis, and now switching over into large multifamilies. We are mostly focusing on Western markets here in the US. So we're covering Arizona, Nevada, Oregon. And yeah, we invest in multifamily properties that have value add components to it.
Excellent, excellent. So our first segment, as I mentioned, is going through the motivations, because even beginners know what their motivations are, even if they don't know what role they're going to play. So the first motivation for wanting a commercial property, or part of one anyway, is to preserve purchasing power. So if you have like a family office or something like that, if you depend on your wealth for your cash flow, then your biggest concern is that it's going to be eroded due to inflation. And whenever you have that kind of situation, it's a game of getting more acquisitions to make sure that the party keeps on going. The next motivation is my one, which is that as somebody in tech, that means I could earn a high salary if I stay in tech. But if I want to increase my wealth, there's an intermediate step of income tax, which is the heaviest kind of tax. So it makes a lot more sense to pivot into the real estate itself. And then that way my effort and my time is being rewarded in the form of wealth. The next reason is the most common one, which is fast tracking your retirement. Most people want to fast track their retirement, but there are 2 things that are implied in this motivation that might not be so obvious. So for young people, they might say that they want to fast track their retirement, but if you haven't even started saving for your retirement, then I don't think that that really counts. But the other thing, of course, is that when you say fast tracking your retirement, there's an end in mind that might not be there for all people. Some people, they'll become an accredited investor and then they'll move to the Philippines or something, and that'll be good enough for them. But the next group, they're the super ambitious people. They want to buy their entire hometown. And so they're going to be hustling into their 90s. They're never going to stop. And that's a very useful person to have in your group, your co-GP group, as you're building your portfolio. So that's a perfectly valid reason for you wanting more commercial deals. But the last one is some people have a section of society that they really want to support. Sometimes it's animals, but if you realize that accumulating wealth is the best way to make a real social impact, then I think you will end up looking to these different assets and getting rewarded in the form of wealth so that you can make that sort of impact in the world. So a lot of people want to help society, so they end up saying, okay, well, how can I do that financially? So out of those 5 different motivations, Bastian, what do you think best describes your situation?
Similarly to you, then, it's definitely the wealth building. For me, my main goal is build generational wealth, acquire properties, ideally holding them forever, and having the ability to pass them down to my family and my kids, and giving them the freedom of time, pursuing whatever they want to pursue, not being stuck into a system where they have to function a certain way, but having the freedom to kind of do whatever they want.
That's a great answer. And that brings me to the different roles in a commercial deal. I'm going to start with the repositioner one for anybody who's starting out. They really need to understand the repositioner job more than any other. The repositioner looks at a whole whack of different properties, which is why I got a picture of a couple different properties there and a bunch of paperwork. Because what the repositioner is doing is they're doing the acquisition, but they're doing the underwriting as well. That means they're doing the math, they're doing the arithmetic to find out if the business is functioning or operating well at all, but they're really looking for upside. And there are 2 main vehicles for upside. One is more efficient operations. You can see the Benjamins going down the toilet there because those expenses really, really count. So it doesn't matter if you're in the bookkeeping side or the marketing side, or if you are actually unclogging toilets and doing maintenance and all that kind of fun stuff, collecting rents. That's the operations part. And there's only so much that they can do to drop the expenses and find some upside, unless basically the person hasn't really researched or networked with enough operators. But efficient operations usually isn't enough to get real upside for a repositioner. So they'll end up getting a contractor team very often so that they can make the place nicer and increase the rents that way. But there's a problem about being a repositioner like me on the internet, which is you need a local. You need somebody who can be there in a short amount of time. And you also need somebody who can oversee the operations, making sure that the operations are actually happening, and then making sure that the contractors are staying on schedule, they're not cutting corners and all that sort of thing. So you also definitely need the boots on the ground or a local. And that's what most people think of when they think of owning and running an apartment complex, but it's more complicated than that, of course. You have to have a financier, you have to go to a bank, maybe it's capital raisers as well. That's another form of financier, but and you need a combination. But you go to the financier and say, hey, lend me all this money to buy this commercial property. It's worth millions or tens of millions of dollars. And what they're going to say is, okay, but who's your sponsor? And a sponsor, for those of you who don't know, that's a person who already owns a similar asset. So if you want to buy a 350 unit apartment complex, you're going to have somebody in the fold who already has a 350 unit apartment complex, even if your name is Elon Musk. And that's in order to be eligible for the loan. The other thing that you need is you need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan, and you're going to need some liquidity supplied by many members, including the sponsor themselves. But that's the 6 different roles in a commercial deal. And out of those, Bastian, what is your core competency that you're most likely to bring to your next deal?
Yeah, so what we looking for when we acquire properties, it's twofold. It's, I guess, the contractor and the operations. So we do increase operations. We try to be more efficient. A lot of the properties that we come across are mom and pop operated properties where they've been running the same processes for many, many years. So going in there, bringing those up to date and streamlining those, but at the same time also working with contractors to bring these properties back up to the current century, if you will, by making them just conform to the market and bringing the rents up to market as well.
So it sounds like you are more on the repositioner side yourself, and you're partnering with those guys to make the flips or the acquisitions work, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so you mentioned a few things regarding your buy box, which is the normal next question. And what I mean by buy box, it's the geographical area. That's perfect. You already mentioned that you want to be West Coast. As far as unit counts, though, what kind of buy box do you have for that? That's your ideal property.
So we're usually looking starting at 50 units. We prefer to be larger than that, more like the 80 to plus unit range, because one of our key criteria is to have on-site management. You want to have on-site manager there, and it kind of from a scale perspective makes only starting to make sense at 80 units and more. So that's ideally where we want to be.
Okay, great. And one of my favorite things about the commercial real estate community is people are so willing to help each other. And I'm not going to say that it's altruistic, even though if you really dig deep, it sure seems that way. But really, it's a matter that no man is an island, as they say. This is a team sport, and the more people you've helped, the better off you're going to be. But there's one other thing I need to mention before I ask the question of who can you help more than anybody else. I have to mention that the SEC has some restrictions in commercial real estate and real estate, which is you're not allowed to entice investors. Okay, so other than enticing investors, what can you please describe the person in real estate that you could help more than anybody else? Like some people say they're beginners, some people you already mentioned the operators, but who's the perfect person for you to help, Bastian?
The perfect person for me to help are people who have a deal but don't know if it's a deal or not. So I'm the underwriter. I run acquisitions. I've been in finance my entire career, so I analyze deals. That's what I do most of the time. And if somebody wants us to have a second opinion or a first opinion, or just wants to chat about underwriting, I think I can be very helpful there.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And for those of you who don't know me, my background is in websites and online businesses. So seven-figure businesses is my background. I got into real estate doing that part for a real estate developer, and then I ended up branching out on my own. And the piece of the puzzle that I help with is because of my programming and software skills. It's streamlining the acquisition pipeline, and then also any automation that can be done with operations. But of course, all this content that goes online, that makes me a capital raiser fairly often recently as well. But that's me. You and I met via some meetups that I found via LinkedIn. But is LinkedIn the best way to reach you, or do you have another website or something like that that's better?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I'm probably 90% on LinkedIn. So you can definitely find me there. I'm kind of slowly starting my Instagram game, but there's not much there yet. So I'm still novice there. But yeah, LinkedIn is the place to go for me.
Okay, awesome. And I have one more thing for you in the audience here, which is if you look under my hand here, you'll see a red button that says subscribe, and you really should hit that, because if enough people hit it, then YouTube starts paying for these videos instead of me, and that's much better. So pretty please, with sugar on top, hit the subscribe button, and it doesn't cost you anything. It just means that my videos might show up on your list of suggestions. But that is what I've got for today. Bastian, this has been so awesome catching up with you and getting more details about how you work in commercial real estate. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Appreciate it.